It began with a sentence no rich man ever expected to hear. Pick someone else. I've been returned 3 times. Those 8 small words cut through Ethan Cole like glass. The man who built empires with code and cold focus froze in front of a little girl in a wheelchair covered with bright galaxy tape. The colors caught the sunlight and looked like tiny stars. He didn't expect his first visit to a small adoption center in Queens to feel like standing on a cliff. But that was exactly how it felt. Like one more step might break him. If this already touches your heart, stay with it. What happens next will test what it truly means to save someone. That morning had started like every other day for Ethan. He stepped out of his penthouse that looked over Central Park. His driver waited near the elevator. His phone buzzed with messages from investors. The markets were about to open. But behind all the noise of success, something heavy sat inside his chest. A year earlier, his sister Emily had died in a car accident while he was in Tokyo, signing a billion-dollar deal. Since then, every victory had felt empty. The newspapers called him the boy genius who turned guilt into gold. They were half right. He told no one where he was going that day. He left his suit behind, put on jeans and a hoodie, and took the subway. Just like he used to when he was a broke kid from Newark. When he reached St. Helena's Family and Adoption Center, the receptionist almost dropped her pen. "Mr. Cole, we weren't expecting—" "Just Ethan," he said gently. "I'm here to meet Lily Parker. Dr. Nora Patel knows I'm coming." The woman blinked, nodded, and typed something quickly. Ethan's name might have meant power everywhere else, but here it felt useless. Dr. Patel soon appeared, holding a folder against her chest. Her voice was calm but tired. "She's had a hard time," she said as they walked down a hallway covered with children's drawings, houses with crooked doors, rainbows bigger than the sky, and hearts that took up half the page. 3 homes, 3 returns. She's smart, creative, but she doesn't trust people easily. Ethan nodded, though his stomach tightened. He had come to help, maybe even to find peace for himself. But he hadn't expected a child who carried more pain than he did. When he saw Lily, the world slowed. She sat near a bright window, her wheelchair turned toward a small garden. Her hair was a halo of dark curls, messy but full of life. A small turtle toy rested on her lap. She didn't look up. Ethan stepped closer and said softly, "Hi, Lily. I'm Ethan." Her eyes moved from his shoes to his face. She studied him like a puzzle. "They told me you build stuff," she said. "Like robots or apps." "I build things that help people connect," he replied. She looked away. People always connect, until they leave. Her tone wasn't angry. It was calm, like she was just telling the weather. Ethan wanted to say something comforting, but his mouth felt empty, so he stayed quiet. After a few seconds, she added, "I'm easy to push, but hard to keep." Dr. Patel shifted as if to change the subject, but Ethan bent down to her level. "Do you mind if I sit here for a while?" She shrugged a little. "You can." He sat on the floor beside her. They talked about small things, turtles, the nurse's radio that always played old jazz, the clouds that looked like giant continents. For the first time in years, Ethan wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just listening. Then Lily said the words that would stay with him forever. "Pick someone else. I've been returned 3 times." She spoke softly, eyes still on her hands. "Once because I cried too much. Once because the mom said I looked like her kid who died. The last one said she was tired." She looked up. "I don't want you to get tired." Ethan's chest tightened. The sounds of New York faded. The horns, the chatter, all of it. "I don't get tired easy," he whispered. "You will," she said simply. They all do. He tried to smile, but his eyes burned. He turned his face away, blinking hard. He had cried before. At funerals, at his sister's apartment. But never like this. Not because a child had spoken truth so sharp it broke him. "I'm sorry," he said. "You didn't do anything," Lily said, hugging her turtle. "I just don't want anyone to promise they'll stay when they won't." Dr. Patel rested a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "She doesn't talk this much to most people," she whispered. "That's saying a lot." Ethan nodded, voice tight. "Yeah, it's saying everything." The meeting was meant to last 15 minutes. It lasted more than an hour. When Ethan finally stood, Lily was drawing on a scrap of paper. A stick figure with messy hair stood beside a small wheelchair under a crooked sun. She held it out without looking at him. "You can take it," she said. "So you don't forget what I look like when you change your mind." Ethan took the paper carefully, like it was made of glass. "I'm coming back," he promised. Lily didn't answer. She just rolled a little closer to the window where sunlight touched her knees. "People always can," she whispered. "It's the staying that's hard." Ethan reached the hallway before his breath broke. He leaned against the wall, his hands covering his face. The weight of every deal he'd ever made felt meaningless compared to one child's pain. When Dr. Patel came over, he didn't hide his tears. "Teach me what she needs," he said. "Medical care, therapy, anything. I want to learn." She looked unsure. "People say that a lot," she said. "I'm not people," Ethan replied quietly. "I'm not here for charity. I'm here to stay." Outside, the city kept moving. Cars honking, people rushing. But inside that quiet center, something changed. The man who thought he could control everything was undone by a child who had lost almost everything. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole wasn't thinking about saving anyone. He was thinking about staying. A week later, he drove back to St. Helena's. The city looked different. The tall glass towers that once made him proud now felt cold and far away. He had spent every night reading the files Dr. Patel sent. Medical notes, therapy plans, progress reports. But none of them showed what hurt the most. He didn't know if he wanted to help Lily, or if he just wanted to forgive himself through her. 40 floors above Manhattan, his office buzzed with meetings and phone calls. But no matter where he went, he kept hearing her voice. "Pick someone else." It wasn't anger, it was tired truth. Those words stayed like smoke in his chest. That week, Dr. Patel approved another visit. This time in the art room. Ethan came again in simple clothes. His sleeves were rolled up, sneakers scuffed. The art room smelled like crayons and paint. Lily sat at a small table, her hair tied into uneven braids, her turtle toy by her side. Ethan smiled. "Hey, Lily, I brought the plantain chips. Both kinds." She looked up. "You remembered." "I try to remember the important things," he said. She kept coloring. "That's good. People forget faster than they promise." Ethan sat across from her. "Dr. Patel says you like painting." "I like it when no one watches," she said softly, filling the sky with a dark purple color. "Then pretend I'm not here." She gave a tiny smile. "That's easy. Most people already do." Ethan felt her words like a quiet punch but didn't try to fix them. He opened the bag of chips and pushed them toward her. Then he picked up a pencil and started drawing too. A turtle wearing a superhero cape. When he showed it, Lily tried to hide her grin, but her lips curved anyway. From the doorway, Dr. Patel whispered to her assistant, "She's never smiled for a new visitor before." Later, in the break room, Dr. Patel told Ethan more. "Lily has spina bifida, She manages most things herself, but transitions are hard. The first family didn't understand the hospital visits. The second couldn't handle therapy. The third just stopped trying. Ethan listened without interrupting. "Does she know everything?" he asked. "She knows more than she should," Dr. Patel said. "She listens for what adults don't say." Ethan nodded slowly, staring at the floor. He thought of the small drawing in his pocket. 2 stick figures under a crooked sun. And in that moment, the man who once built his life out of logic began to believe in something else. Something small, fragile, and human. He didn't want to build anymore. He wanted to stay. "I want to understand what her days look like," Ethan said quietly. "Her routines, her meds, her triggers." Dr. Patel raised an eyebrow. "You're serious about this, aren't you?" "Serious enough to show up," he answered. "So teach me." And she did. For the next few weeks, Ethan came back to the center quietly. No cameras, no press, no talk. Just him. He learned how to fasten the straps of Lily's wheelchair, how to fold her therapy brace without hurting the joints, how to distract her when the physical therapist stretched her legs until her eyes watered. He learned her schedule: morning medicine, school hours, therapy, art time, even the songs she liked when she couldn't sleep. Every night, Ethan sat by the tall window of his apartment, the city glowing below him. He replayed her words in his head like an old record. The markets moved. His company grew. His emails piled up. But the only progress that mattered now was when Lily let him push her chair without flinching. One Saturday, Dr. Patel arranged a community reintroduction, an hour outside the center, with a trusted visitor. Ethan signed the forms faster than she could explain them. They went to Central Park. The sky was a soft, lazy blue, the kind that made even New Yorkers slow down. Ethan pushed Lily's wheelchair gently down the path, careful not to rush her. She wore a big sun hat that kept sliding to one side. Each time he fixed it, she rolled her eyes, but didn't tell him to stop. A saxophone player stood near Bethesda Fountain, playing a smooth, lonely tune that drifted through the air. Lily tapped her fingers against the armrest. "That song sounds like walking," she said. Ethan smiled. "You've got rhythm. Maybe you'll dance one day." She looked up sharply. "Maybe you'll stop trying to fix things that aren't broken." Ethan laughed softly. "Touché." They stopped for ice cream, vanilla for her, black coffee flavor for him. When he crouched to hand her the cone, a pigeon flapped nearby, and her chair wobbled over a small curb. The cone fell, and Lily froze. Her face turned pale. Ethan caught the handles just before the chair tipped. Hey," he said, crouched beside her. "You're okay. I've got you." She stared straight ahead, breath quick, eyes glassy. "Don't say that word," she whispered. "What word?" "Safe," she said, her voice cracking. "Everyone says that before they go." For a moment, Ethan couldn't speak. The wind moved around them, carrying city noise and the echo of her fear. He stayed crouched, one hand resting gently on the wheel. "Okay," he said finally. "No promises, just ice cream." He picked up the cone, wiped it with a napkin, and handed it back. Second chance. This time, she took it. By the time they returned to the center, Lily was humming softly under her breath. The same tune the saxophone player had played earlier. Dr. Patel met them in the hall. "She doesn't hum for anyone," she said, her eyes soft. Ethan shrugged, his voice low. "I didn't do anything. I just stayed." That night, Ethan sat down at his desk and wrote an email to his company's board of directors. He told them he was taking an indefinite leave to work on something real. The PR team panicked. Investors questioned his sanity. But for the first time in years, Ethan didn't care about headlines or numbers. He didn't want to be a symbol anymore. He just wanted to be human again. Days fell into rhythm. Therapy visits, story time, crayon sketches pinned to the walls. Lily began greeting him with half smiles instead of silence. Once, when he asked if she liked superheroes, she said, "They always fly away. I like turtles. They stay." And in that simple truth, Ethan saw everything she'd been trying to tell him since the first day. She didn't need saving. She needed someone who wouldn't leave. He drove home that night feeling like something inside him had quietly changed shape. The man who once measured life in profit margins now measured it in minutes, beside a little girl who laughed at trumpet ducks and hated the word safe. But the world outside didn't stay quiet for long. A few days later, the headlines came. Young billionaire plays savior at Queen's Adoption Center. Ethan Cole's new charity project, a child in a wheelchair. Grainy photos spread across the internet. One of him crouched beside Lily in the park. Another of her faint smile near the edge of the frame. The online comments were cruel. Publicity stunt. Guilt trip with good lighting. Let the man buy redemption if he can afford it. Ethan didn't read them all, but the few he saw hit deep. He'd spent years shaping his image, controlling every headline. Now, all he wanted was to disappear from them. That night, Dr. Patel called him. Her voice was calm. "Maya, sorry, Lily saw the news," she said. "She asked if you're famous." Ethan closed his eyes, pressing his fingers to his temple. "What did you tell her?" "That you used to be," Dr. Patel said gently. It was the kindest truth she could offer. Ethan realized then, the only way to quiet the noise was through action, not words. He bought an old brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. Not the glossy kind seen in magazines, but one with chipped steps and ivy crawling up the walls. He told the contractors to widen the doorways, add ramps, and install an elevator chair. When they asked about the budget, he said, "Build it like someone you love will live here." He began spending less time at the office. His CFO tried to warn him, "You'll tank the stock if you keep this up." Ethan barely heard him. His calendar now filled with hospital meetings instead of board meetings. Pediatric specialists explained Lily's long-term care plan, while he took notes like a student afraid to fail. Dr. Patel noticed the change. "You're doing a lot for someone who hasn't even been approved for placement yet," she said. Ethan smiled faintly. "You don't build a bridge after the storm starts." When he told Lily about the house, she didn't look impressed. "Everyone says things before the papers are signed," she said, coloring a turtle on her sketch pad. "Promises are like paper shields. They get wet easy." Ethan smiled. "Then we'll make ours waterproof." Her crayon paused mid-stroke. "You think that's possible?" "I think we'll find out," he said. The field visits continued. Sometimes they went to the botanical gardens. Other times they sat at a small diner that smelled like rain and burnt coffee. That's where they met Grace, a retired nurse with kind eyes, and Marvin, a wheelchair basketball coach with arms like steel and a grin that could light a room. Over time, they became part of Ethan and Lily's quiet routine, small witnesses to something new and real forming between them. One Thursday morning, Ethan found a note taped to his office door. It wasn't from his staff. The handwriting was uneven and purple. "You forgot to sign my turtle drawing." Underneath, smaller letters. "People who stay should sign things." Ethan laughed out loud, startling his assistant. That night, he drove straight to the center. Lily was by the window, reading. "You have a point," he said, handing her a pen. "Where do I sign?" She pointed at the corner of the sky on her drawing. "Not on the turtle, on the sky," That's where promises go. Ethan wrote EC in small, careful letters. She nodded. Okay, paper shield. Maybe less paper now. Outside, the world didn't stop. Reporters hovered near the gate. Questions shouted through fences. But inside, Ethan and Lily built something the noise couldn't touch. One afternoon, as he arrived, Lily asked, "Are you going to stop coming when they tell you to?" "Who's they?" he asked. "The people who write things." Ethan crouched beside her chair. "Lily, the only story I care about is ours. And you get to help me write it." That seemed to calm her. She smiled just a little and whispered, "Then spell my name right." He laughed, a sound that felt brand new coming from him. By early summer, the adoption process began its long, careful steps. Home visits, background checks, interviews, court forms. The lawyers warned him that high-profile applicants were often tested harder. "They think money makes people impulsive," one said. "They'll see if you mean it." "Good," Ethan replied. "They should." Meanwhile, Lily's questions started to change. They weren't about the past anymore. They were about him. "What's your favorite smell? Do you ever get scared of the dark? If I can't walk, do you still think I can dance?" Ethan answered every one, slow and honest. And every answer, somehow, brought him closer to the little girl who had taught him that staying was stronger than saving. Lily didn't need perfection. She needed truth. One quiet afternoon, she asked Ethan a question that stopped him cold. "When people get adopted," she said, "do they forget the ones before?" Ethan thought for a long moment. The air between them felt still. "I don't think forgetting is part of love," he said finally. "I think it's the opposite. It's remembering without hurting so much." She studied him, her eyes steady. "You talk like you've practiced that." "Maybe I have," he said softly. Dr. Patel saw the difference in both of them. "She's starting to trust you," she told Ethan one day after therapy. He smiled faintly. "I'm starting to deserve it." On a rainy Tuesday, Ethan arrived at the center carrying something new. A small whiteboard and a box of colorful markers. "These are for you," he told Lily. "For the days when words are heavy. You can draw instead." Lily tilted her head. "Or," she said, "you could learn sign language, just in case I don't want to talk at all." Ethan blinked, surprised. "You know sign?" "Some," she said, her small fingers flicking quickly. "Thank you." He tried to copy her motion but did it wrong. She giggled. "You just said banana." He laughed. "Guess I need practice. Good thing I'm a tough teacher," she said proudly. That evening, Ethan drove home through the rain. The city lights blurred across his windshield like streaks of color. For the first time since his sister Emily's death, he didn't feel haunted. He felt grounded. Lily was teaching him that love wasn't about saving people or perfect endings. It was about showing up, again and again, until showing up itself became the promise. He parked in front of the brownstone. The house was almost finished. Inside, the walls were painted sky blue. There was an elevator chair by the stairs, low countertops in the kitchen, and a bedroom big enough for a small wheelchair beside the bed. He imagined Lily's laughter echoing through those rooms. For the first time in years, home didn't feel like guilt. It felt like grace. The night before the court hearing, New York felt heavy. Rain poured down the glass buildings. Traffic lights blurred red and gold across the wet streets. From his office window, Ethan watched the city pulse below him. Alive, loud, and heartless. He had built his empire on control, on numbers that never lied. But now, as thunder rolled over the East River, control meant nothing. Lily's future rested in a pile of papers and a handful of strangers' opinions. The call came that afternoon. A former foster family had filed an objection. They claimed Lily had emotional instability and difficulty bonding. Words written by people who couldn't handle her courage. Courage that sometimes looked like defiance. It was enough to freeze the adoption process until a judge reviewed the case. Ethan listened as Dr. Patel explained it over the phone. Her voice was calm, but each word hit him like a hammer. "You'll have to testify, Ethan. They're questioning your motives." Motives, he repeated. That word burned. He thought about the headlines, the cameras, the endless noise waiting for him to fail. For the first time in years, he was afraid. Not of losing money, not of losing face, but of losing the one person who had finally made him want to stay. That evening, he drove straight to the center. Lily sat by the window, tracing raindrops on the glass with her finger. "They told me," she said before he could speak. Her voice was small, flat. "You can't take me home." "For now," he said carefully. "It's just for now." She turned to him, eyes sharp and hurt. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," he said quickly. "You did everything right." "Then why do people keep deciding what happens to me?" she asked. There was no anger in her tone, only exhaustion. "I thought you were different." Ethan knelt in front of her wheelchair. "I am different," he said. "But sometimes the world isn't." She looked away, her jaw tight. "It's fine," she whispered. "You can stop trying. It's easier that way." Her words cut deeper than any betrayal he had known. "Lily, look at me," he said softly. She didn't. "I'm not going anywhere. I meant it." "People always mean it," she whispered. That night, the storm grew stronger. Ethan drove with no direction, wipers beating hard against the glass. The streets were almost empty. He ended up near the Brooklyn Bridge, parking by the railing. The wind was wild, the rain soaking through his coat. He leaned on the cold metal and stared at the skyline, a heartbeat of lights across the dark water. He thought of Emily, her laughter, her accident, the way he hadn't been there when she needed him most. He thought of Lily's face when she said, "You can stop trying." He realized then that he'd been fighting battles money couldn't win. This one demanded something he had avoided all his life: vulnerability. He pulled out his phone and called Dr. Patel. "I want to testify," he said. "I already planned for that," she replied. "But it won't be easy, Ethan. They'll ask about your past, your losses. They'll dig deep." "Let them," he said. "They can't take away what's real." The next morning, the courthouse on Center Street felt cold and echoing. The marble floors carried every sound. Lily sat beside Dr. Patel, holding her turtle toy. She wore the red sweater Ethan had given her after their first trip to Central Park. When their eyes met, she didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. That was enough. The hearing began. The foster couple spoke first. Their words were calm but distant, like reading from a script. They described Lily as emotionally unstable, uncooperative, and manipulative. Ethan clenched his fists under the table. He wanted to stand and shout that they were describing bravery, not behavior, but he stayed silent. When it was his turn, he stood and took the oath. His voice was quiet, but firm. "I'm not here because of guilt or headlines," he began. "I'm here because a 6-year-old girl showed me what love looks like when it refuses to quit." He looked around the courtroom. "You want to know my motive? It's not charity. It's not redemption. It's staying." The opposing lawyer leaned forward. "Mr. Cole, you're a billionaire. People will say this is a vanity project. What do you say to that? Ethan turned his head toward Lily. Her eyes were locked on his, steady and brave. I say they've never met her, he said. Because if they had, they'd know this isn't about saving anyone. It's about showing up for someone who stopped expecting you to. The courtroom fell silent. Even the clerk stopped typing. When the hearing ended, the judge said she would need time to decide. Hours later, Ethan waited in the hallway outside. The air smelled like rain on old stone. Lily wheeled up beside him, clutching her turtle. You talked a lot, she said, her tone half teasing. I do that when I'm nervous, he admitted. You didn't sound nervous, she said. I was, he replied. You make me brave. Rain began again as they stepped outside. The sky turned silver. Ethan pushed her chair toward the car, careful on the wet steps. Halfway down, she stopped him. If they say no, she asked quietly, will you still come back? He bent down so their eyes met. If they say no, I'll come back tomorrow, he said. And the day after that. Until they say yes. She studied him in silence, searching for lies. Finally, she nodded. Okay. Then I'll wait. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The rain tapped against his windows like soft fingers. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the drawing Lily had made weeks ago. 2 stick figures under a crooked sun. He realized he'd spent his whole life building walls to stay safe. Now the walls were falling, and for once, he wasn't afraid. He was free. At dawn, his phone rang. It was Dr. Patel. Her voice trembled slightly, the first time he'd ever heard it shake. The judge made her decision, she said. She approved the placement. Ethan, it's done. For a moment, he couldn't speak. He sat there, breath shaking, eyes wet. Outside, the rain slowed. Light began to break through the clouds, soft and golden. He whispered, We did it, Lily. We finally stayed. Later that morning, Ethan walked into St. Helena's. The air smelled of crayons and morning rain. Lily was waiting by the window, the same one where she used to watch storms alone. When she saw him, she didn't ask what happened. She just looked at his face, and knew. So, she said quietly, I can come home now? Ethan knelt beside her. Yeah, he said, smiling through tears. You can come home. She looked down at her hands. You should know. I snore. He laughed, wiping his eyes. That's okay. I talk in my sleep. We'll drive each other crazy. For the first time, she smiled fully. Wide, bright, and real. Dr. Patel watched from the doorway, her eyes shining. You two ready? Ethan nodded. We've been ready for a while. They rolled down the hallway together. A man who finally learned to stay and girl who finally believed someone would. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, spilling gold across the pavement. And for the first time, Ethan Cole didn't feel like a man running from his past. He felt like a man walking home. When Ethan arrived that morning, he didn't need to say anything. Lily didn't need the words. She saw it in his face, the kind of joy that speaks before the mouth ever moves. It was the look people wear when they've finally found home. She didn't cry. She simply reached for his hand, fingers small and sure, and whispered, Took you long enough. Ethan laughed, tears already spilling down his face. Yeah, he said, kneeling beside her wheelchair. But I'm not leaving again. Outside, the city seemed quieter than usual, as if New York itself had paused to take a breath. The streets were soft with early spring light, and petals from blooming trees drifted across the sidewalk like shy confetti. He stood by the window of his brownstone, watching the slow approach of the white van from St. Helena's. His hands trembled, even though he'd spent months preparing for this day, designing, planning, waiting. But nothing could prepare him for the moment the van door opened. Lily rolled down the ramp wearing a denim jacket over a yellow dress. Her stuffed turtle sat proudly in her lap. "You live here?" she asked, looking up at the tall brick house. "I do," Ethan said. Then he smiled softly. "But it's about to be our house." She studied the building for a moment. The tall windows, the climbing ivy, the sunlight spilling over the steps. "It looks old," she said. "Old means it's seen a lot," Ethan replied. "And it's still standing." Dr. Patel stepped out behind her, holding a clipboard and smiling with quiet pride. "I think you'll like the backyard," she told Lily. "It's full of sunlight." Inside, the house glowed with gentle life. The walls were painted cream, the furniture simple and sturdy. Comfort didn't have to be expensive, Ethan had learned. It just had to be made with care. Lily's room was upstairs, sky blue, with tiny stars painted across the ceiling and a window that faced the garden. She wheeled herself in slowly, eyes wide. On the desk sat a framed photo, a secret snapshot taken months earlier at Central Park. She was laughing in it. Ethan was looking at her instead of the camera. "You kept this," she said softly. "I keep everything that matters," he answered. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she touched the photo and looked at him. "Then I guess I matter." "You always did," he said. And this time, she didn't look away. The first weeks were quiet, full of adjustment, learning, and small victories. Nurses came in the mornings to help with her routines and therapy. Ethan joined in, awkward at first, then slowly finding rhythm. He learned how to hold her wheelchair steady, how to measure her medication, how to cook breakfast the way she liked. She hated scrambled eggs, but loved pancakes with too much syrup. Every time he overdid it, she'd laugh and say, "You're bad at pancakes, but good at trying." Their days began to fall into a gentle pattern. Mornings in the garden, afternoons reading by the big window, evenings spent drawing or watching the lights outside. Ethan had installed a small elevator chair between floors, but Lily liked to push her own wheels most of the time. "I don't want the house to forget it's mine too," she said, grinning. By summer, the garden became her favorite place. They planted daffodils and sunflowers side by side. Lily tucked each bulb carefully into the soil. "This one's Emily," she said one morning. Ethan froze. He had never told her about his sister. Not really. "Emily's a good name for a flower," Lily said, looking up. "It sounds like something that comes back every year." Ethan swallowed hard. "Yeah," he whispered. "She always did." In August, Lily started art classes at a community center nearby. Ethan drove her there every Tuesday and waited quietly while she drew. The first week, she refused to show him her work. The second, she handed him a page filled with swirling colors: gold, blue, gray. "This is what quiet looks like," she said. He studied it for a long time. "Looks like peace," he said. "Same thing," she replied. By autumn, their home had grown louder. Music drifted through open windows, laughter echoed down the hall. Grace, the retired nurse from the diner, came for dinner on Fridays. Marvin, the wheelchair basketball coach, taught Lily how to shoot hoops in the backyard. "You've got arms made for this," Marvin told her. "Strong where it counts." She grinned. "Like turtles," she said. One night after everyone left, Lily found Ethan sitting in the garden, coffee cooling beside him. "Do you still miss her?" she asked quietly. He knew she meant Emily. "Every day," he said. "But it doesn't hurt like before." Lily nodded. "Maybe that's what love does. It stays even when it changes shape. Ethan smiled. You sound older than me. I've been practicing, she said, resting her head on his arm. You're doing okay, you know. He didn't answer. He just placed his hand over hers. Winter came softly that year. They decorated the house with paper stars and painted snowflakes on the windows. One night, Ethan found Lily by the fireplace, drawing in her notebook. What are you making? He asked. A letter, she said. For who? For me. So I don't forget this part. He didn't ask to see it, but later that night, after she'd gone to bed, he found the page left on the table. In her uneven handwriting it read, Dear me, it's okay now. You don't have to be brave all the time. Some people stay. He folded it carefully and placed it in his wallet. A year passed. On a bright, spring afternoon, they stood together on the High Line, the city stretching wide around them. A pale blue butterfly landed on Lily's wheel and lingered. She watched it quietly. That's Emily, she said softly. She found us. Ethan looked at the sky, his voice barely a whisper. Yeah, she always finds a way. The following week, Lily's school held an art showcase at Lincoln Center. She'd been working for months, but she wouldn't let Ethan see it early. When the curtain lifted, her painting filled the screen behind her. A large canvas of a turtle with galaxy-colored wheels, a man and a little girl standing beneath a sky full of stars. The title read, Staying. The applause thundered, but Lily's eyes were on him. After the show, she handed him a folded paper, the corners smudged with paint. It's my new resume, she said. In case anyone asks what I can do. He unfolded it. Inside, in careful letters, she'd written, I can laugh again. I can love. I can stay. Ethan didn't speak for a long time. He just pulled her close and whispered, You forgot one. She looked up. What? What you can teach, he said. You taught me how to stay too. That night, they drove home through the glowing city. The traffic lights flashed on wet pavement, and the air hummed with quiet life. Hey, Ethan, Lily said, her voice soft. Yeah? Don't pick someone else. He smiled, eyes still on the road. Never. Silence filled the car. A calm, golden kind of silence. The kind that means peace, not emptiness. Outside, the world shimmered. Not the sound of wealth or power, but the heartbeat of two lives finally learning to move in the same rhythm. The daffodils would bloom again soon. The turtle plush would keep its place beside the bed. And the house that once echoed with silence would stay full of laughter. Love hadn't erased the pain. It had rewritten it. And in that rewrite, both of them finally found what they'd been missing. Not a miracle, not a rescue, but something quieter and stronger. The long, bright after. Ethan Cole, the man who once measured life by numbers and deals, found meaning not in fortune, but in the quiet act of staying. What began as a single visit to an adoption center had turned into a shared healing, a story not of saving, but of believing again. Together, Ethan and Lily built more than a home. They built a space where pain could live beside joy, where love meant showing up even when it wasn't easy. Lily's laughter filled the silence his guilt once owned. Ethan's patience gave her what she'd never had before: permanence. The story of Ethan Cole and Lily Parker reminds us that redemption doesn't come from grand gestures or perfect endings. It comes from presence. You don't need to be rich to change a life. You just need to stay when it would be easier to walk away. In a world chasing quick fixes, their story whispers something slower, a call to listen, to care, and to love with intention. So, if this story touched your heart, hold on to it. Because somewhere out there, another child waits to be believed in. And another heart waits to learn the simple, impossible art of staying. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Every story we share reminds us that love, kindness, and hope still matter. Your one click helps us reach more hearts, more lives, and more people who need a little light. So, stay with us for more stories that heal, inspire, and remind you that sometimes the greatest thing you can do is simply stay.